They say you can tell everything about a person in the first 3 seconds. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes those 3 seconds can rewrite your entire life. I was standing in my kitchen doorway, water pooling at my feet from the broken sink, when I saw him for the first time. Bald head covered in faded ink. Hands that looked like they'd built things and broken things in equal measure. He was supposed to fix my plumbing. Instead, he looked at my empty fridge, at the exhaustion I thought I'd hidden so well, and said 6 words that changed everything. "When's the last time you ate?" I should have been scared. Society would say I should have slammed the door. But when he started pulling groceries from his bag, groceries he'd brought for himself, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Safe. You will feel so many emotions in this story of second chances and forbidden love. Please support us by clicking subscribe to the channel. My name is Rachel, and I'd been drowning long before my sink started leaking. Working double shifts at Miller's Diner on Route 9, coming home to an apartment in North Portland that felt more like a cell than a home, dodging calls from my landlord, Mr. Chen, and my ex-boyfriend, Derek, with equal dread. The apartment was supposed to be temporary, just until I got back on my feet after the breakup. That was 8 months ago. 8 months of treading water, of telling myself tomorrow would be different, of watching my savings drain away with every crisis I couldn't afford to fix. When I found Jake's number on the community board at the 24-hour laundromat on 5th Street, handyman, cheap. No job too small. Call Jake, 503-555-0147. I didn't ask questions. The card was worn, like it had been hanging there for months, maybe years. The handwriting was careful, deliberate. I just needed something in my life to stop breaking. The sink had been leaking for 2 weeks, creating a constant drip, drip, drip that became the soundtrack to my insomnia. My landlord wasn't answering calls. I was out of options. He showed up exactly when he said he would. 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, my day off. I'd spent the morning cleaning, trying to make the apartment look less pathetic than it felt, then gave up halfway through and left the dishes in the sink. When I opened the door, my first instinct was to close it again. He was bigger than I expected. Not tall, maybe 5'10", but solid. Built like someone who'd done hard labor, real work, the kind that leaves permanent marks. His head was completely bald, shaved smooth, and the tattoos started at his collar and disappeared under his flannel shirt. Celtic knots, geometric patterns, something that looked like barbed wire circling his neck. His face had that weathered quality, maybe 35, maybe 45. Impossible to tell. But it was his hands I noticed most, calloused, scarred, with the kind of strength that comes from years of use. He had a toolbox, old, metal, covered in stickers and paint marks, professional. "Rachel?" His voice was quiet, respectful. "I'm Jake. You called about a sink?" I let him in. What choice did I have? He went straight to work, barely saying 3 words. Efficient, methodical. He laid out his tools with precision, each one in its exact place. Turned off the water main without asking where it was, like he'd been in 100 apartments just like mine and knew the layout by heart. I hovered in the doorway, watching, ready to run if I needed to. But he never looked at me wrong, never made me uncomfortable. Just fixed the sink with hands that moved like they'd been fixing things forever. 20 minutes. That's all it took. He tested the faucet, checked for leaks, cleaned up his workspace until it looked cleaner than when he'd arrived. When I tried to pay him, $40 cash, all I could afford, he waved it off. "You look like you need the money more than I do." I didn't know what to say to that. He wiped his hands on a rag, started packing his tools. Then he paused. His eyes went to the refrigerator, still open from when I'd grabbed him a glass of water. I saw him see it. The empty shelves, the single bottle of ketchup, the expired milk I'd been too tired to throw away, the nothing that had become my normal. Something changed in his expression. Not pity. Something harder. Something that looked like recognition. "When's the last time you ate?" he asked. I stiffened. "That's none of your business." He shrugged, already reaching into his backpack. "Maybe not. But I'm making dinner anyway." He pulled out a paper bag from the grocery store. "Pasta, sauce, fresh vegetables. You can eat it or not. Your choice." I should have kicked him out. Should have called someone. Should have done anything except stand there and watch this bald, tattooed stranger start cooking in my kitchen like he'd been doing it his whole life. But I didn't. I sat at my own kitchen table and I watched. He moved with the confidence of someone who'd cooked in tight spaces, who knew how to make a meal out of simple ingredients, who understood hunger in a way that went beyond missing lunch. 30 minutes later, he set a plate in front of me. Spaghetti with marinara, garlic bread made from the heels of a store-bought loaf, a side of sautéed zucchini. It smelled like home, like care, like someone had noticed I was disappearing and decided to do something about it. I stared at the food, throat tight. Why are you doing this? He sat down across from me with his own plate. Because someone should. You don't know me. I know you're surviving, not living. There's a difference. The way he said it, like he knew exactly what that difference felt like he'd lived on both sides of that line, made something crack inside my chest. We ate in silence. The food was simple, but perfect. Every bite felt like proof that I wasn't as invisible as I thought. When he finally stood to leave, I wanted to ask him to stay. Wanted to ask him 100 questions. Wanted to know why a stranger cared more about my well-being than anyone who actually knew my name. He washed his dish, dried it, put it away like he knew where it belonged. Then he grabbed his toolbox and headed for the door. But he paused at the threshold, his eyes scanning the hallway outside my apartment, the broken lock I'd been meaning to fix, the burned-out light at the end of the corridor, the darkness that made every late-night arrival feel dangerous. You shouldn't be alone here at night, he said. It wasn't a question, it was a warning, or maybe a promise. I've been fine so far, I lied. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I felt seen in a way that was both terrifying and comforting. Until you're not. He left his number on my counter, different from the one on the laundromat card. This one was handwritten on the back of a hardware store receipt. If you need anything, he said. Doesn't have to be plumbing. I watched him walk down the hallway, toolbox in hand, moving with a careful awareness of his surroundings that I couldn't quite name. Like he was used to watching his back. Like he'd learned a long time ago that safety was something you created, not something you assumed. I didn't know then that those tattooed hands had spent 9 years behind bars, learning to survive on nothing. I didn't know he'd decided the moment he saw me struggling that leaving me alone wasn't an option anymore. All I knew was that for the first time in 8 months, someone had looked at me and seen me, really seen me, and that changed everything. He kept showing up. Tuesday morning, 5:45 a.m. I was waiting at the bus stop on Morrison Street for my opening shift at the diner. The stop was in a rough area, 2 blocks from my apartment, surrounded by closed storefronts and empty lots. I was the only person there in the pre-dawn darkness, clutching my coffee and trying to look less vulnerable than I felt. That's when I saw him. Jake, leaning against a truck parked across the street, breath visible in the cold air. Not hiding, just there. Our eyes met. He nodded once. I didn't know what to do, so I nodded back. When my bus arrived, he was still there. When I looked back through the window, he was gone. Thursday night, I worked the late shift, got off at midnight. The diner parking lot was poorly lit, and I'd learned to walk fast, keys between my fingers like a weapon. Halfway to my car, I saw him. Same truck, different location. This time parked where he could see both my car and the diner entrance. He didn't approach, didn't wave, just watched until I got in my car, started the engine, and pulled out. Then he pulled out behind me, followed me for 3 blocks, turned off when I was safely in my neighborhood. Friday, he was carrying groceries into my building when I came home from work, a paper bag in each arm, walking up the stairs like he belonged there, except he didn't. I knew everyone in this building, 6 units, thin walls, the kind of place where you know your neighbors, schedules whether you want to or not. Jake wasn't one of them. I caught up to him on the 2nd floor landing. Are you following me? He set the groceries down, turned to face me. No guilt, no embarrassment. Yes. The honesty knocked the air out of me. Why? Because someone should. He said it so matter-of-factly, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, like I was something worth protecting. Your lock's still broken, the light's still out, and you've been looking over your shoulder for 2 weeks. How would you know that? Because I've been watching for 2 weeks. It should have scared me, should have sent me running to the police. But there was something in his voice, not possession, not obsession. Concern. The kind of solid, dependable concern I hadn't experienced since my father died. I searched for the word. Intense. I know. He picked up his groceries. I'm staying in 3B. Temporary rental. Month to month. If it makes you uncomfortable, I'll leave. He started up the stairs, then paused. But I'm not going to stop making sure you get home safe. He was right about me looking over my shoulder. Derek, my ex-boyfriend, had started his campaign 3 weeks ago. It began with texts. I miss you. We can work this out. You're making a mistake. When I didn't respond, the texts got darker. You think you can just leave? You don't get to decide when we're done. I know where you are. Then came the calls, 20, 30 times a day. I blocked his number. He got new ones. Showed up drunk at 2 a.m., pounding on my door, shouting that I was his, that I'd always be his, that he'd make sure no one else could have me if he couldn't. I'd filed a police report. The officer, bored, overworked, took my statement and told me there was nothing they could do unless Derek actually did something. Calling and texting isn't illegal, ma'am. Neither is showing up at your apartment if there's no restraining order. You need evidence of a threat. But I heard the threat in every message. Saw it in the way Derek had started parking outside the diner, watching me through the window. Felt it in the notes left under my windshield wipers. We're not done. You'll see. Soon. Jake noticed everything. The way I flinched when my phone buzzed. The way I checked the parking lot before leaving work. The way I'd started taking different routes home. Longer routes through better lit areas, even though it meant an extra 20 minutes of walking. One night, Derek was waiting in the diner parking lot, leaning against my car, drunk, with that smile that used to charm me and now only made my skin crawl. I froze in the doorway, considered going back inside, calling someone, waiting him out, but I'd done that before. Derek had patience when he was drunk. He'd wait all night if he had to. So I took a breath, gripped my keys, and started walking. Made it maybe 10 steps before I realized Jake was there. I hadn't seen him approach, hadn't heard him. But suddenly he was between me and Derek, solid as a wall. Derek's smile faltered. Up close, Jake had at least 3 inches and 40 pounds on him. And something else. Something in the way he stood, perfectly balanced, hands loose at his sides. The posture of someone who knew how to fight and didn't need to prove it. She's not interested in talking to you, Jake said quietly. Who the hell are you? Derek pushed off my car, swaying slightly. Her new boyfriend? That was fast, Rachel. Real classy. I'm the person telling you to leave. Or what? Derek stepped closer, trying to chest bump Jake. It was like watching someone challenge a mountain. You gonna make me? Jake didn't move, didn't react. Just stood there, and somehow that was more intimidating than any threat. No. I'm going to watch you make the smart choice and walk away. His voice dropped lower. And then I'm going to make sure you keep making that choice. Every day. For as long as it takes. Whatever Derek saw in Jake's face, it was enough. He mumbled something about me not being worth it, stumbled to his car, and peeled out of the parking lot, spraying gravel. I realized I'd been holding my breath. When I finally exhaled, Jake turned to me. You okay? I wasn't. I was shaking. But I nodded anyway. What did you say to him? That you're not alone anymore. He walked me to my car, waited until I was inside with the doors locked. Follow me home. I'll wait outside your building until you're inside. You don't have to. I know, but he did anyway. And for the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. No jumping at sounds, no checking the locks every hour. Just sleep, deep and dreamless, because someone was watching the door. The next morning, my coworker Brenda pulled me aside during the breakfast rush. She was 50-something, had worked at Miller's Diner for 15 years, and treated all the younger waitresses like daughters she needed to protect. Rachel, honey, that man who's been hanging around, the bald one with all the tattoos. Do you know who he is? His name's Jake. He fixed my sink. Her face did something complicated. Worry mixed with fear, mixed with something that looked like pity. Sweetie, do you know what he did? Why he was in prison? The word hit me like cold water. Prison. Attica, 9 years, got out 6 months ago. She glanced toward the window, like she could still see him there. Brenda's nephew is a parole officer. He mentioned the name, Jake Morrison. Said he nearly killed a man. Assault with a deadly weapon, armed robbery, the whole thing. She grabbed my hands. I'm not trying to scare you. But you need to know what you're dealing with. I pulled my hands away. He's been nothing but respectful. They always are at first. Her eyes were sad. Just be careful, okay? These men, they seem like they've changed, but that kind of violence doesn't just go away. I made it through my shift on autopilot. Smiled at customers, took orders, poured coffee, all while my mind raced. Prison, 9 years, nearly killed a man. The words didn't match the person who'd cooked me dinner, who'd walked away from Derek instead of engaging, who'd fixed my sink and refused payment. That night, I Googled him and learned that everything Brenda said was true. Jake Morrison, age 32, convicted of assault with a deadly weapon and armed robbery, sentenced to 9 years. Served at Attica Correctional Facility, released on parole after serving full sentence with good behavior. The Portland Tribune article was from 7 years ago, back when the story was still news. There was a photo, younger face, harder eyes, the same tattoos snaking up his neck. The article said he'd beaten a man outside Rosie's bar on 82nd Avenue, put him in the hospital for 3 weeks. Fractured skull, broken ribs. The victim had been lucky to survive. The robbery charge was secondary. He'd taken the man's wallet after the assault, though the article suggested it hadn't been about money. It had been about rage. The prosecutor had called him a danger to society, and a man whose violence knows no bounds. The judge had agreed. 9 years. No early parole. Serve every day. I sat in my dark bedroom, phone screen glowing, reading the same paragraphs over and over, trying to reconcile the man in that mugshot with the man who'd carried groceries for me, who'd watched me sleep safely from a distance, who'd faced down Derek without throwing a single punch. They didn't match. The story and the reality felt like two different people, but I knew better than to trust my instincts. Every true crime podcast, every news story, every warning from every woman who'd ever trusted the wrong man, all of it screamed at me to run. To call my landlord, demand Jake's lease be terminated, to file my own restraining order, to choose safety over whatever dangerous curiosity was keeping me from doing the smart thing. Instead, I called in sick to work and waited outside the hardware store where Brenda's nephew had mentioned Jake worked part-time. He came out at 3 p.m., flannel shirt and work boots, carrying a thermos, saw me immediately, stopped walking. For a long moment, we just looked at each other across the parking lot. Then he walked over, slow and careful, like approaching a spooked animal. "You Googled me," he said, not a question. "Why didn't you tell me?" He set his thermos on the hood of his truck. "Would you have let me help you if I had? I deserve to know." "You're right, you did." No excuses, no attempts to justify or minimize, just acknowledgement. "I'm sorry, I should have been upfront, but I also know how people react when they find out. And He looked away. "I wanted to help you before you knew. Before you saw me the way everyone else sees me. And how's that? Like I'm one bad day away from becoming that person again." The pain in his voice was so raw I almost reached for him. Almost. "Tell me what happened." "The truth." He leaned against his truck, arms crossed, eyes on the pavement. His name was Marcus Chen. He was dating my sister, Emily. For 2 years, he hit her. Not where anyone could see. Never hard enough to send her to the hospital. Just enough to keep her scared. Controlled. I tried to get her to leave, offered her my apartment, money, whatever she needed. She kept going back. His jaw tightened. One night, she called me from the bathroom of Rosie's bar, crying. Said Marcus had hit her in front of his friends and they'd all laughed. Said she was finally done? Would I come get her? I was there in 10 minutes. He looked at me then. Marcus was outside, drunk, bragging about how he'd taught his girl a lesson. Something in me just broke. I saw Emily's black eye, heard his friends laughing, and I made a choice. You nearly killed him. Yes, I beat him until someone pulled me off. And even then, I wanted to go back. The robbery charge. I took his wallet because I wanted him to feel powerless the way Emily had felt powerless. I wanted him to lose something. He shook his head. The judge was right. I was dangerous, out of control. I deserved every year I served. What happened to your sister? She visited me once. First month I was inside. Told me that what I did made everything worse. That Marcus's family blamed her. That she had to move 3 states away to escape it. That I'd destroyed any chance she had of a normal life in Portland. His voice cracked. She said she'd never forgive me, And she haven't spoken to her in 8 years. I processed this. The violence was real. He wasn't denying it. But the context? You were trying to protect her. In the worst way possible. And I paid for it. 9 years, every single day, I paid for it. He looked at me. Prison changes you. Either it makes you harder or it breaks you completely. I chose to let it remake me. Learned to control the rage, took anger management, did therapy, read everything I could about violence and trauma and how to be better. He pushed off the truck. I'm not that person anymore, Rachel. But I understand if you can't trust that. If you want me gone, I'm gone. I should have said yes. Should have protected myself. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to walk away. But when I looked at him, this bald, tattooed ex-con who'd paid his debt and was desperately trying to stay paid, I didn't see danger. I saw someone who'd clawed his way out of hell and was terrified of falling back in. I need time to think, I said. He nodded. Take all the time you need. I went home, called my mother in Seattle, told her everything. She reacted exactly as expected. Horror, anger, demands that I move back home immediately. Rachel Marie Chen, you are not staying in that apartment with a violent criminal living upstairs. This is exactly how women end up on the news. I called Brenda. She was gentler but equally firm. Sweetie, I'm saying this because I care about you. This man is dangerous. I don't care how nice he seems. Violence like that doesn't just go away because someone does therapy in prison. You're playing with fire. Everyone was telling me to run, and maybe they were right. Maybe I was being naive, stupid, the kind of woman who ignores red flags until it's too late. But when I closed my eyes, all I could see was the way Jake had looked at my empty fridge. The way he'd cooked for me without asking for anything in return. The way he'd protected me from Derek without losing control. The way he'd told me the truth, even knowing it might cost him everything. That night, Derek sent me a text from yet another new number. Saw your new friend, ex-con. Huh? You really downgraded. When he's back in prison where he belongs, I'll be waiting. And I realized something. Derek, who'd never been arrested, never been to prison, was considered by society to be the safe choice, had spent months terrorizing me. While Jake, the convicted felon everyone warned me about, had spent weeks making me feel protected without asking for anything in return. Maybe danger wasn't where I'd been taught to look for it. I called Jake at 11 p.m. I need your help. Silence on the line. Then, with what? Derek's escalating. He knows where I work, where I live. I filed a restraining order, but the cops say there's nothing they can do until he actually does something. My voice cracked. I'm scared, Jake, and you're the only person who's made me feel safe in months. I'm on my way. That's when my apartment window shattered. A brick, wrapped in a note tied with kitchen twine. The paper was torn from a notebook, the writing scrawled in shaky capitals, "You can't hide from me. Time's up." Glass everywhere. Cold air pouring in. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial 911. But I could hear Jake's truck engine roaring in the background of the call, getting closer. I'm 2 minutes away. Lock your door. Stay away from the windows. I'm coming. And for the first time since I'd found out the truth, I wasn't afraid of him. I was grateful. Jake moved into my spare room that night. It wasn't a decision we discussed so much as a reality that happened. The police came, took my statement, photographed the brick and the note, dusted for fingerprints they probably wouldn't find. They asked about Derek. I told them about the months of harassment, the restraining order I'd just filed. Officer Patterson looked tired. We'll add this to the report, but unless someone saw him throw it, we can't prove it was him. Who else would it be? I demanded. That's the problem, ma'am. Who else isn't evidence? Jake stood in the corner during all of this, silent and still, watching everything. The officers kept glancing at him, the tattoos, the build, the ex-con vibe he couldn't quite shake even when he was trying to help. I saw Officer Patterson's partner whisper something. Saw Patterson nod. Saw them both look at Jake with that specific kind of cop suspicion that assumed guilt until proven otherwise. After they left, Jake boarded up my window with plywood from his truck. He'd come prepared, hammer, nails, measuring tape, all organized in that battered metal toolbox. Worked fast and efficient while I swept up glass. When he finished, my living room looked like a crime scene, but at least it was secure. I'm staying tonight, he said, Not a question. I'll take the couch. I have a spare room. Couch is closer to the door. He was already pulling a sleeping bag from his duffel, along with a baseball bat. This is for the door, he said, propping it in the corner. Not for him, unless he makes me choose. The way he said it, protective but restrained, told me everything about the line he was walking. One wrong move, one moment of losing control, and he'd be right back behind bars. And he knew it. Every action was calculated. Every response was measured. He lived in a space between who he'd been and who he was trying to become, and that space was smaller than anyone should have to navigate. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept hearing the sound of shattering glass. Kept seeing Derek's handwriting on that note. At 2 a.m., I gave up and went to the living room. Found Jake sitting on my couch in the dark, staring at nothing. He'd changed into a white t-shirt. In the dim light from the street, I could see more tattoos, a full sleeve on his left arm, something that looked like a memorial piece on his right shoulder. Can't sleep either, I asked. He shook his head. Prison taught me to sleep light. Some habits you don't break. I sat down on the other end of the couch, pulling my knees to my chest. What else did it teach you? Long silence. Outside, a car drove by, headlights briefly illuminating the room. That everything you think matters doesn't, and the things you never thought about, like having a conversation without someone listening, or eating food that actually tastes like something, or having a door you can close whenever you want, those are everything. He looked at me. It taught me that control isn't about dominance. It's about choosing, every single minute, not to be the person you could easily become. Is it hard? Choosing. Every day. He flexed his hands, looking at them like they belonged to someone else. These hands know how to hurt people. That knowledge doesn't go away just because I don't want to use it anymore. Every time I get angry, every time I feel threatened, every time someone pushes back, I have to choose. And the choosing is exhausting. I reached out without thinking, touched his hand. It was rough, scarred, and warm. He didn't pull away. Thank you for choosing, I whispered. He turned his hand over, let his fingers curl loosely around mine. Thank you for letting me. We sat like that for a long time. Two broken people finding something like peace in the quiet. Eventually, I asked, do you regret it? What you did to Marcus Chen? Every day. No hesitation. Not because I went to prison. I deserve that. But because I proved Emily right. She thought violence solved problems, and I showed her it only creates more. I took away her choice, her agency, her chance to leave on her own terms. I made myself the villain in her story. He looked at our joined hands. So no, I don't regret protecting her, but I regret how I did it. Does she know you've changed? I doubt she cares, and that's fair. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, the gesture so gentle it made my chest ache. But maybe I can prove it to someone else. Someone who needs it as much as I need to give it. I understood then. This wasn't about romance or attraction or any of the normal reasons people helped each other. This was about redemption. Jake needed to prove to himself, to the universe, to whatever God he believed in, that he could protect someone without destroying them, and I needed someone to see me as worth protecting. We were using each other, in the healthiest way possible. The knock on the door made us both jump. Jake was on his feet instantly, baseball bat in hand, positioning himself between me and the entrance. Through the peephole, a man I didn't recognize, bald like Jake, but older, maybe 50, covered in tattoos that looked darker, cruder, prison tattoos, the kind done with makeshift guns and stolen ink. Jake Morrison, the voice called through the door. Been a long time, brother. We need to talk. Jake's entire body had gone rigid. Marcus, he said quietly. And I knew this wasn't about Marcus Chen, the man he'd beaten. This was someone else. Someone from inside. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Jake looked at me. I saw the war in his eyes, between opening the door and proving he wasn't afraid, and keeping it closed and proving he'd changed. Stay in your room, he said. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. Jake? Please, Rachel. This is from my old life. You don't need to be part of it. But as I watched him unlock the door, I realized I already was. His name was Marcus Webb. They'd shared a cell for 3 years at Attica, Marcus on a second conviction for armed robbery, Jake on his first offense. Marcus had gotten out 2 years before Jake, and from the tension radiating off Jake's shoulders, I knew this wasn't a friendly reunion. They talked on the landing, low voices, but I pressed my ear to my bedroom door and heard enough. "Look at you, living clean," Marcus said. There was an edge to his voice. "Nice apartment building. Pretty girl to protect. You got soft, Morrison. I got smart. Same thing from where I'm standing." A pause. "I need help with something. One job, quick in and out. Your skills, my connections. We split 60-40. I'm out." "Nobody's out. You think you can just walk away, play house, and pretend you're not who you are?" Marcus's voice dropped. "Remember who taught you to crack safes in under 3 minutes? Who showed you how to disable alarms without tripping backups? That was me. You owe me. I owe you nothing. We survived together. That debt's paid." "Is it?" Footsteps. I imagined Marcus moving closer. "Because from my perspective, I kept you alive in there. Made sure the Aryan Brotherhood didn't make you their bitch. Made sure you had protection, commissary, information. And now that you're out, living nice, you're gonna forget all that?" Jake's voice went cold. "I'll wire you $2,000. That covers whatever debt you think I owe. After that, we're done." "2,000? Marcus laughed, bitter and sharp. "The job I'm planning pays 50 grand. Your cut would be 20. You really gonna turn that down to play Bob the Builder for some scared waitress?" That's when I heard it. The subtle shift in Jake's tone that made my blood run cold. "Don't talk about her. Touched a nerve, huh? She know what you are. What you're really capable of." A pause. "She know that you didn't just beat Marcus Chen? That you would have killed him if someone hadn't pulled you off? That the only reason you're not serving life is because Chen was too scared to testify to the worst of it? Get out. I'll give you 3 days to think about it. But Jake," footsteps retreating, "you can pretend all you want. Change your clothes, get a straight job, play protector to some girl who doesn't know better. But we both know the truth. Once you've been inside, once you've learned what you learned, you're never really out. The skills don't fade. The instincts don't disappear. You're just one bad situation away from being that guy again." The door closed. Silence. Then Jake's fist hitting the wall, once, controlled, the sound of rage being carefully contained. When he finally knocked on my bedroom door, his voice was steady. "He's gone. You can come out." I opened the door. Jake was leaning against the hallway wall, head down, breathing like he'd just run a marathon. "I need to tell you everything," he said. "What I was good at in there. What they wanted me for. What I'm trying not to be anymore." We went to the kitchen. He made coffee, something I was learning he did when he needed his hands busy. Then he told me about the skills you learn in prison when you have 9 years and nothing to lose. How to read people, spot weakness, know when someone was lying or scared or about to attack. How to disable security systems, crack locks, move through spaces without being seen. He'd been recruited by other inmates, the ones planning crimes for when they got out. The ones who needed specialists. The ones who turned prison into criminal graduate school. "I was never violent inside," he said. "But I was useful. That's worse, in some ways. Because violence is reactive. What I did was calculated." He wrapped his hands around his coffee mug. "Marcus taught me most of it. He was good. Really good. Could have been a master thief if he hadn't kept getting caught. And now he wants me to use those skills one more time." "What did you tell him?" "No. Absolutely not." He met my eyes. "But he's not going to accept that. Men like Marcus don't." Meanwhile, Derek was escalating. The brick through my window had been just the beginning. 2 days later, someone slashed all 4 of my tires. The police couldn't prove it was Derek. The day after that, my boss at Miller's Diner got an anonymous call claiming I'd been stealing from the register. I hadn't, but it didn't matter. The accusation was enough to get me written up, put on probation, my hours cut. Derek was systematically dismantling my life, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Then came the email. From Derek's personal account, sent at 3 a.m., rambling and unhinged. "You think your ex-con boyfriend scares me? I know people too. I know how to make you hurt. I know how to make sure you never feel safe again. You're mine, Rachel. You've always been mine, and if I can't have you, I'll make sure nobody can. Jake read it over my shoulder. I felt him go still. He's not bluffing. This is serious. The police won't do anything until he actually does something. Then we make sure he doesn't get the chance. Jake grabbed his phone. I'm calling my parole officer, telling him everything about Derek, about Marcus, about the situation. If this goes south, I need it documented that I tried to do this the right way. I watched him make the call, watched him be honest, transparent, walking the line between protecting me and protecting his freedom. When he hung up, his face was grim. Mr. Patterson says to keep documentation of everything. Record calls if possible. Don't engage with Derek directly. And if Marcus contacts me again, report it immediately. And if that's not enough, then I use what I know to stop them both. But if I do that, he didn't finish. Didn't need to. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't think. Jake had ordered Chinese food, but it sat untouched on the counter. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. TikTok. Rachel, time's running out. Then another. Your boyfriend can't protect you forever. Ex-cons don't stay free for long. And when he's gone, you're all mine. Jake was reading over my shoulder again. I felt his hand tighten on the back of my chair. He's baiting me, Jake said quietly, trying to make me react, trying to make me do something that violates my parole. Is it working? He was quiet for a long moment. Yes, and that's the problem. At midnight, Marcus called Jake's phone. I wasn't supposed to hear the conversation, but our apartment was small and Marcus was loud. Time's up, Morrison. I've got a crew ready. Job's tomorrow night. You in or out? I told you I'm out. Then I'm disappointed. I really am. A pause that felt calculated. By the way, heard about your girl's ex-boyfriend problem. Derek Marshall, right? Works at that auto body shop on Division. Been stalking her for months. I watched Jake's face go white. Funny thing about guys like Derek. They're cowards. Push back hard enough, they fold. Want me to handle it for you? No. You sure? Because my way, your girl sleeps safe, and you keep your hands clean. Win-win. I said no, Marcus. All right. But when she ends up hurt because you were too scared to do what needs doing, remember I offered. The line went dead. Jake stood there, phone in his hand, and I saw him, really saw him. The war between who he'd been and who he was trying to be. The terrible knowledge that he had the skills to solve this problem permanently, and the equally terrible knowledge that using those skills would destroy everything he'd built. He's right, Jake said finally. I could stop Derek. Tonight. One conversation in a dark parking lot, and he'd never bother you again. But you'd go back to prison. Maybe, maybe not. If I'm smart about it, if no one sees, if I control myself. He looked at me. But that's the lie, isn't it? There's no such thing as controlled violence. Once you let yourself become that person again, there's no guarantee you'll be able to stop. I stood up, walked to him, put my hands on his face. Then we find another way. What if there isn't one? Then we deal with that when we have to. But we don't give up your freedom before we've exhausted every other option. He pulled me close, held me like I was the only thing keeping him anchored to his new life. And maybe I was. Maybe we were saving each other in ways that had nothing to do with Derek or Marcus or any external threat. Maybe we were just two people learning that redemption isn't something you achieve. It's something you choose, over and over, every single day. The next morning, my apartment door was spray painted. Red letters, still wet, time's up. And Jake had to choose. Derek came through my bedroom window at 2 a.m. Not the one Jake had boarded up. The one in my bedroom, facing the fire escape. I woke to the sound of breaking glass and Derek's weight landing on my floor, reeking of whiskey and rage. I screamed. Jake was there in seconds, still in his t-shirt and sweatpants, baseball bat in hand, but he didn't swing it. Rachel, get behind me. His voice was absolutely calm. The kind of calm that comes from training, from practice, from 9 years of learning to control every response. Derek lunged. I watched Jake move like water, sidestepped, used Derek's momentum against him, guided him face first into the wall with barely any force. Derek bounced back, threw a wild punch. Jake caught his wrist, twisted, and suddenly Derek was on the ground, arm behind his back, Jake's knee pressing between his shoulder blades. Not hurting him, just controlling him. Completely. Don't move, Jake said. Then to me, Rachel, call 911. Tell them intruder, restrained, send police. I did. Hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. Watched Jake hold Derek down with an efficiency that was almost beautiful. Minimum force, maximum control, every movement purposeful. Derek was screaming, threatening, promising he'd kill us both. Jake didn't respond. Just held him there, waiting for the sirens. The police arrived. Officer Patterson and his partner. They took statements, saw the broken window, Derek's intoxication, the restraining order paperwork I'd filed the week before. It should have been simple. Derek arrested, me safe, justice served. But then Patterson recognized Jake. I saw it happen. The way his eyes narrowed, the way he called his partner over, the way they started asking different questions. Mr. Morrison, how long have you been living here? Miss Chen, are you aware of Mr. Morrison's criminal history? How did you know to have a baseball bat ready? The restraining order was filed last week. Same time Mr. Morrison moved in. Interesting timing. They were treating Jake like the criminal and Derek like the victim. I watched it happen in real time. The narrative shifting, the assumptions forming. Derek in handcuffs suddenly became Derek, the troubled ex-boyfriend driven to desperate measures. Jake became the violent ex-con who'd orchestrated the whole thing. This doesn't make sense, Patterson's partner said, looking at Jake with open suspicion. You just happened to hear the window break, just happened to have a weapon ready, just happened to know exactly how to restrain him without causing visible injury? I was trained in the Army, Jake lied. Smooth, practiced, basic combat training, and I sleep light. That's not what your record says. Says here you learned your skills somewhere else. They took Derek away, but not before Patterson pulled me aside. Mr. Chen, I need you to understand something. This man, he nodded toward Jake, spent 9 years in prison for nearly beating someone to death. You're letting him live with you. Sleep in your home. Now your ex-boyfriend breaks in and conveniently, your convicted felon roommate is here to play hero. He saved my life. Or he set this up to look that way. Patterson leaned in. From where I'm standing, this looks like a setup. Or worse, like you're in danger and don't even know it. How well do you really know Jake Morrison? Better than you do? I doubt that. He handed me his card. When things go bad, and they will, you call me. Day or night. Jake's parole officer showed up the next morning. Mr. Patterson, no relation to the cop, was a weary black man in his 50s who'd clearly seen everything twice. He sat at my kitchen table, reviewed the police report, looked between Jake and me with an expression I couldn't read. Mr. Morrison, he set down the papers. You've been doing well. 6 months, no violations, steady employment, clean drug tests. But this, he tapped the report. This is exactly the kind of situation I warned you about. Association with conflict, being present during a violent incident, using force against another individual. I protected her, didn't hurt him, controlled him until police arrived, did everything by the book. I believe you, but intent doesn't matter to the parole board. Outcome does. And the outcome is you were involved in an altercation that resulted in an arrest. Patterson sighed. I have to report this. They'll review your case. Best case scenario, you get a warning. Worst case, he didn't finish. Worst case, I go back. Yes. I felt the world tilting. He didn't do anything wrong. Miss Chen, I understand your position, but Mr. Morrison's parole conditions are clear. No involvement in criminal activity, no use of force except in immediate life-threatening situations, no association with individuals engaged in illegal behavior. He looked at me sympathetically. Your ex-boyfriend breaking in arguably qualifies as life-threatening, but the fact that Mr. Morrison was living here had prepared for this possibility, had a weapon ready. That looks premeditated. Like he knew this was coming and positioned himself to be involved. Because I asked him to, because Derek was stalking me and the police wouldn't help. Patterson closed his folder. Then you should have filed for police protection, should have gone to a shelter, should have done anything except involve a paroled felon in your domestic situation. He stood. The hearing is in 2 weeks. Mr. Morrison, I suggest you get legal representation. Ms. Chen, you'll be called as a witness. What you say will determine whether Jake Morrison stays free or goes back to prison. After he left, Jake started packing. Just started pulling his clothes out of the spare room, folding them methodically, putting them in his duffel bag. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Making this easier for you." "Stop. Rachel, I'm going to lose my parole. And when that happens, everyone's going to say you threw your life away for nothing." He didn't look at me. "You deserve better than this." I walked over, grabbed the shirt out of his hands. Don't you dare decide what I deserve. You deserve someone who doesn't come with a 9-year shadow following them everywhere. I deserve someone who fights for me. And you do." My hands were shaking. "Every person telling me to run from you is the same person who watched me struggle for months and did nothing. You're the only one who saw me. Really saw me. So no, you don't get to leave just because this got hard." He finally looked at me. "They're going to make you choose, in that hearing, between telling the truth and saving me. And I won't let you lie for me. Then I'll tell the truth. That you controlled him without hurting him. That you did everything right. That you're not the man from 9 years ago. And if they don't believe you, then we deal with that." I stepped closer. "The question isn't whether I deserve better. It's whether you think you deserve to fight for this. For yourself. For your second chance." He pulled me close, held me like I was the only thing keeping him from drowning. "Every day, I wake up and I choose to be better. But some days, the choosing is so hard, I don't know if I can keep doing it. Then let me choose too. Let me choose you, the way you chose to help me." The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks from Friday. Jake's entire future would be decided by a panel of people who'd never met him, who only knew him through files and reports and the worst moment of his life. I was listed as the primary witness. Everything depended on what I said. That night, my mother called. "Rachel, please. Come home. Leave all this behind. Start over somewhere safe." I am somewhere safe. You're with a violent criminal. I'm with someone who spent 9 years learning to control violence. There's a difference. She was crying. "I'm so scared for you." "I know, Mom. But for the first time in my life, I'm not scared for myself. And that has to count for something." The night before the hearing, Derek called me from jail. I don't know how he got phone privileges. Don't know why I answered. "You're going to stand up there and defend him, aren't you?" he said. "Going to tell them all about how perfect your ex-con boyfriend is, how he saved you." He did save me, from you. I was trying to protect you. By stalking me, by threatening me, by breaking into my apartment. I was done being afraid. You terrorized me for months, Derek, and the system did nothing. Jake protected me, and now he might go to prison. If that's not proof that something's broken, I don't know what is. He's using you. No, he's seeing me. Finally, someone sees me, and I won't apologize for that. I hung up, turned to Jake, who'd been listening from the doorway. "I know what I'm going to say tomorrow. Rachel, I'm going to tell them the truth, that you're the best man I've ever known. And if they can't see that, it's their failure, not yours." He didn't argue, just held me. And we waited for morning. I stopped sleeping. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that hearing room, saw Jake being taken away in handcuffs, saw my testimony failing to save him. So I started digging. If Derek had orchestrated this to get Jake sent back, there had to be proof. Paper trails, digital footprints, something that showed intent. I started with Derek's social media. He'd been careful, no direct threats, nothing overtly incriminating. But his Facebook was full of posts about me. Weeks of them, dating back to when we first broke up. Worried about a friend who's making bad choices. Sometimes you have to save people from themselves. When someone you love is in danger, you do whatever it takes. All carefully worded, all designed to make him look like the concerned ex, me like the misguided victim, Jake like the predator. His friends and accounts were more revealing. Comments Derek had made, liked, shared. She's being manipulated by a criminal. I'm trying to protect her. The cops won't help, so I have to take matters into my own hands. Building a narrative, creating justification, documenting his own twisted version of events. Brenda found me in the Miller's Diner parking lot at 2 a.m. on Tuesday night, 5 days before the hearing, staring at my phone in my car. "Girl, what are you doing?" "Saving the first good thing that's happened to me in years." She got in the passenger seat, looked at my phone screen, Pages of screenshots, notes, timelines. Rachel, you need to sleep. I need to find proof. Proof of what? That Derek set this up. That he escalated deliberately to provoke Jake. That he broke into my apartment knowing Jake would be there, hoping Jake would react violently so he'd go back to prison. I scrolled through another comment thread. It's all here, the pattern. I just need the smoking gun. Brenda was quiet for a minute. Then, Derek's cousin is a cop. I looked at her. What? Daniel Marshall. Works for Gresham PD. Derek used to brag about it. Said he had connections. Said if I ever had trouble with a customer at the diner, Danny could make it go away. She shifted uncomfortably. I always thought he was exaggerating. But what if he wasn't? That was it. That was the thread. I went home, logged into Derek's cloud. He'd never changed his password from when we were together. Sloppy and arrogant. And there it was. Text messages between Derek and his cousin Daniel. Hundreds of them. Keep the pressure on Morrison. Make him look dangerous. You sure about this? Tampering with a parole case is serious. He's a violent ex-con living with my girlfriend. I'm protecting her. Besides, guys like him don't stay clean. We're just speeding up the inevitable. What do you need me to do? Talk to Patterson's partner. Feed him suspicions. Make it look like Morrison's playing hero as part of some setup. Make them question everything. More messages. Daniel confirming he'd spoken to the officers who responded to my apartment. Confirming he'd suggested they look at Jake as a potential suspect rather than a helper. Confirming he'd file reports emphasizing Jake's criminal history, his access to weapons, his weak suspicious presence at the scene. And then, the smoking gun. Thanks, Danny. When Morrison's back in Attica where he belongs, Rachel will finally see she needs me. I screenshot everything, printed it, built a timeline showing Derek's escalating harassment, his communication with his cousin, the deliberate manipulation of the police response. Then I did something that terrified me. I called a lawyer, a real one, not a public defender, paid with money I didn't have, on a credit card I couldn't afford. Her name was Jennifer Martinez, and she specialized in parole violations and wrongful incarceration. She reviewed what I'd found, and her eyes got wider with every page. Ms. Akais Chen, do you understand what this is? This is conspiracy to violate parole, witness tampering, abuse of police authority. If we can verify these messages, I have the originals, cloud backup, time-stamped, everything. She leaned back in her chair. This changes everything. Derek Marshall wasn't just harassing you. He was deliberately creating a situation designed to revoke Mr. Morrison's parole. That's criminal conspiracy. Can you help him? I can do better than that. I can get this hearing dismissed and potentially press charges against Derek and his cousin. She started making notes. But I need your permission to use this evidence. It means Derek will know you hacked his account. It means things might get dangerous before they get better. Do it. The hearing was 3 days away when Martinez filed her motion. Emergency request to dismiss parole violation with attached evidence of conspiracy and police misconduct. The parole board agreed to review before proceeding. Derek was arrested that afternoon. Additional charges of stalking, harassment, and conspiracy to violate parole. His cousin Daniel was suspended pending investigation, but it wasn't over. The parole board still wanted testimony, still wanted to hear from me, from Jake, from everyone involved. Martinez said it was a formality, that the evidence was solid, but nothing was guaranteed. Jake could still lose everything. The morning of the hearing, I woke at 5 a.m. and wrote out my testimony. Not the sanitized version Martinez had suggested, not the careful, legally strategic version, the truth, the whole truth. About the empty fridge and the dinner Jake made, about the way he'd protected me without violence, about the man who'd spent 9 years learning to control the worst parts of himself so he could be better for someone who needed him. We drove to the hearing together. Jake in a suit I'd helped him pick out, black, simple, professional. He looked nervous. More nervous than I'd ever seen him. At a red light, he reached over and took my hand. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what? For fighting for me when everyone said you shouldn't. You fought for me first." The hearing room was small, institutional. 3 board members at a table, Martinez on our side, a state prosecutor on the other, looking annoyed that his case was falling apart. They called me first. I walked to the front, put my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, and then I told them everything. Not about the evidence, Martinez had already presented that. About Jake. About the man who'd seen me struggling and decided that walking away wasn't an option. About the ex-con who'd controlled a violent intruder without throwing a single punch. About the person who chose every single day to be better than his worst moment. People keep asking me if I know what Jake did, I said, looking directly at the parole board chairwoman. If I know about his conviction, if I understand the risk, yes, I know. I know he nearly killed a man 9 years ago. I know he paid for it with 9 years of his life. And I know that the man sitting here today is not that man. My voice didn't shake. I know because I've seen him face provocation. I've seen him threatened. I've seen every reason to be violent handed to him on a silver platter. And I've watched him choose control instead. That's not someone who hasn't changed. That's someone who's worked harder than anyone in this room to become better. The chairwoman looked at Jake. Mr. Morrison, do you have anything to say? Jake stood. Yes, ma'am. I spent 9 years paying for the worst thing I ever did. I don't expect anyone to forget it. I don't expect anyone to give me special treatment, but I'm asking you to see that I learned from it. He took a breath. I learned that violence destroys everything it touches. I learned that protecting someone doesn't mean hurting someone else. I learned that second chances are precious, and when you get one, you don't waste it. He looked at me. And I learned that some people are worth rebuilding your entire life for. They deliberated for 20 minutes, came back with their decision. Violation dismissed. Derek's conspiracy proven. Jake's parole continued without restriction. He was free. We walked out of that courthouse hand in hand. Jake pulled me close, buried his face in my hair, and I felt him shaking. You did it, he whispered. You saved me. No, we saved each other. That night, my mother called. I saw the news. About Derek. About what he did. Long pause. I was wrong, Rachel. About Jake. About everything. It's okay, Mom. No, it's not. I let fear make me cruel. I let assumptions make me blind. That man, he's good for you. And I should have trusted you to know that. We talked for an hour. Really talked. And by the end, she was asking when she could meet Jake properly. Not as the ex-con she'd feared, but as the man I loved. 6 months later, I'm standing in a different kitchen. Our kitchen. It's small, on the second floor of a building Jake helped renovate as part of his new job with Morrison & Sons Construction, a legitimate company run by his parole officer's brother, specializing in hiring ex-cons and giving them real second chances. The sink doesn't leak, the fridge is full, and there's a baseball bat in the closet that we'll probably never need, but keep anyway as a reminder of how far we've come. The apartment isn't fancy. 1 bedroom, small living room, kitchen barely big enough for 2 people, but it's ours. We signed the lease together 3 months ago, both our names on the paperwork. Jake had cried when the landlord approved us despite his record. I didn't think anyone would take a chance on me, he'd said. I'd squeezed his hand. I did, and I was right. Jake comes up behind me while I'm cooking dinner. His recipe, the one he made that first night in my old apartment. Spaghetti with marinara, garlic bread, sautéed zucchini, simple food that tastes like home. Need help? He asks, wrapping his arms around my waist. From a handyman? Always. He laughs. This sound that still surprises me every time because it's so free, so unburdened. We've built something here in this little apartment that smells like oregano and second chances. It's not perfect. He still wakes up sometimes at 3 a.m., checking locks, walking the perimeter, making sure we're safe. The prison habits die hard. I still flinch when my phone buzzes unexpectedly. Still can't quite shake the feeling that Derek might come back, even though he's serving 18 months for stalking and conspiracy. But we're healing. Together. Learning to trust that safety isn't something you fight for once and keep forever. It's something you build, day by day, choice by choice. My mother came to dinner last week, flew down from Seattle, stayed at a hotel nearby because she wanted to respect our space. She sat at our small table, met Jake properly for the first time, saw how he looked at me, like I hung the moon and all the stars besides, saw how gentle he was, how careful, how every movement was designed to make me feel safe and loved and chosen. She pulled me aside when he was washing dishes. We stood in the little hallway by the bathroom, and she took my hands. I was wrong about him, she said quietly. Or maybe I was right about who he was and I just couldn't see who he'd become. Her eyes were wet. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I didn't trust you. Didn't trust him. Didn't see what you saw. I hugged her tight. It's okay, Mom. Fear makes people say things they don't mean. It's not okay. But I'm grateful you're giving me the chance to make it right. We're lying in bed that night. Our bed, in our apartment, in our life. When Jake says, I need to tell you something. My heart skips. After everything we've been through, those words still carry weight. Okay. That first day, when I showed up to fix your sink, I saw your address on the work order and I almost turned the job down. He rolls to face me, and in the dim light I can see the vulnerability in his eyes. Because I recognized your street, your building. It's where my victim lived. Marcus Chen. Different apartment, but same building. And I thought, what are the odds that I'd be sent to help someone in the exact place that represented everything I'd destroyed? I touch his face, feeling the stubble, the warmth, the reality of him. What made you come anyway? Because I realized that's exactly why I had to come. Not to fix a sink, to prove to myself that I could walk into that building and build something instead of breaking it. His eyes are wet. You gave me that chance, before you even knew you were doing it. You gave me the chance to be someone who helped instead of hurt. You gave me the same thing, I whisper. The chance to be someone worth protecting. We get married in spring. April 15th. Portland in bloom. Cherry blossoms everywhere. Small ceremony at the courthouse. Just family and a few close friends. Brenda from the diner. Jake's parole officer. Mr. Patterson, who's become something like a mentor. Martinez, the lawyer who saved Jake's freedom. Even Jake's sister Emily flew in from Denver. They'd reconnected after the hearing, tentatively rebuilding what had been broken. Jake wears a suit that makes him look distinguished, tattoos peeking out at his collar and wrists. Parts of his past he doesn't hide anymore, doesn't have to. They're part of his story, and his story is what made him who he is. When we say our vows, I tell him, I chose you not because I needed saving, but because you showed me what redemption looks like, what it costs, what it's worth. You showed me that people can change, that second chances are real, and that love doesn't always look the way society says it should. He kisses me, whispers against my lips. Every day, I choose to be worthy of that. Every single day. We walk out of the courthouse hand in hand, into sunlight that feels earned. Someone on the street gives us a strange look, probably sees the tattoos, the obvious difference in our backgrounds, makes assumptions. I don't care. I know something they don't. That some of the best things in life come from giving people the second chance society says they don't deserve. That the man society called dangerous is the safest place I've ever been. Our story isn't about a woman who saved a man, or a man who saved a woman. It's about two people who were drowning in different ways and chose to save each other. It's about looking past what someone did and seeing who they're trying to become. It's about trust earned slowly, in small moments, through consistent choices to be better. 3 months after the wedding, Jake gets promoted to project manager at Morrison & Sons. He comes home exhausted but glowing, tells me about the crew he's managing, 5 other guys with records, all trying to rebuild their lives. I get to do for them what Mr. Patterson's brother did for me, he says. Give them a chance when everyone else sees a criminal. We start talking about the future, about maybe buying a small house, about kids, someday, when we're ready, about building something permanent, something that can't be taken away. Jake's terrified. What if I mess them up? What if I pass on the anger? And I remind him that awareness is protection, that he spent a decade learning to be better, and that makes him more prepared than most people. Derek was released from prison after serving 9 months. We got a notification, part of the restraining order. Jake installed extra locks that day, updated our security system, made sure I was never alone in parking lots. But Derek never came. His lawyer sent a letter, formal, brief, saying Derek was moving to California for a fresh start and wanted no further contact. We haven't heard from him since. Sometimes, late at night, Jake talks about Marcus Webb, the cellmate who'd tried to pull him back into crime. He's still inside, Jake says. Got caught on that job he was planning. 20 years. And sometimes I think about how close I came to being there with him. How one choice, one moment of weakness, could have sent me right back. But you didn't make that choice. Because of you. Because I had something worth staying clean for. No. I correct him. Because you chose yourself. I just helped you remember you were worth choosing. We're in our kitchen on a Tuesday night. 1 year after I first called that number on the laundromat board. Jake's teaching me his prison marinara recipe, the real one, the one he perfected over 9 years of making do with commissary ingredients. We're laughing because I keep adding too much garlic, and he's pretending to be scandalized. Your Italian grandmother is rolling in her grave, he says. You don't have an Italian grandmother? Exactly, which is why she's rolling, from not existing. I throw a dish towel at him. He catches it, pulls me close, kisses me in our small kitchen that smells like home. And I think about that first night, when he'd looked at my empty fridge and decided that leaving me alone wasn't an option, when he'd made me dinner and asked nothing in return, when he'd started me on this path without either of us knowing where it would lead. Thank you, I say against his chest. For what? For seeing me, for choosing me, for showing me that sometimes the person everyone warns you about is exactly the person you need. He holds me tighter. Thank you for seeing past what I did and believing in who I could become. We stay like that for a long time. Two people who found each other in the broken places, who built something beautiful from pieces everyone else said were too damaged to fix. Our story started with a leaking sink, an empty fridge, and 6 words that changed everything. When's the last time you ate? It continued with a choice. His choice to help, my choice to let him. Both our choices to keep choosing each other even when it was hard. And it will end. Well, it won't end. Because love like this, built on honesty, tested by fire, strengthened by survival, doesn't end. It just keeps growing. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of trust after another. Outside our window, Portland is settling into evening. The city where we both found redemption. The place where an ex-con and a struggling waitress proved that second chances are real, that people can change, and that sometimes the best love stories start in the most unexpected ways. I look at Jake, my husband, my partner, my proof that people are more than their worst moments. And I know, we made it. Against all odds, against all warnings, against everything that should have kept us apart. We made it. And it all started with a sink that wouldn't stop leaking, and a man who knew that sometimes fixing someone's plumbing means seeing their hunger, their loneliness, their need to be chosen. Sometimes it means showing up with groceries you brought for yourself and deciding that someone else needs them more. Sometimes it means becoming the person you needed when you were at your worst. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it means finding someone who sees you trying to be better and says, I'll try with you. If you made it to the end of this story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. And click the yellow bell to subscribe to the channel and support us. Keep the adventure going by clicking on the suggested video on your screen.